The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, haircut scheduling, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and probably not role-playing games. Today, the Dukes bring in Abby to review Cascadia from Flat Out Games and AEG. Then Sean takes a look back at his review of Pendulum from Stonemaier Games in his Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And you're joining us for episode 260, which we're calling Pacific Standard Time. That episode title thanks to Alex Bistecki. Great title suggestion, although he didn't have much faith in that title suggestion. Right,
yeah,
Alex?
it was, you got to believe in yourself, Alex. Look, speaking as a fellow Alex, us Alexes have to stick together, right? You gotta make sure there's good Alex awareness out there. You gotta watch your back. All these other names think they know us, but I'm just saying, Alex Bistecki, it is not a best of the rest episode name suggestion. In fact, it was so good, Paul Naxer independently thought about it and posted the same suggestion later in that thread. So, sorry, Paul. You were beaten to it. It was a good idea, clearly. And Alex, congrats.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense because we're talking about Cascadia, a game that takes place among the wildlife of the Pacific Northwest, right? I don't know. I've never played it, but that's what you told me.
No, it's correct. You're correct.
And then sort of the time element, the real-time element, and the swinging of a clock with Pendulum. So Pacific Standard Time. Excellent job, Alex. We get help naming all of our episode titles, or most of them, from our guild. There is sometimes a little help there on the guild.
Well, in fairness, that still did come from the guild.
True.
But through shenanigans. Listen to our last episode if you're curious. Yeah.
But anyway, our guild helps name all of our episodes, and we have a bunch of fantastic runners-up that we'll talk about at the end of the episode. We're guild number 2008 over on BoardGameGeek.com. Well, Alex, we made it. We made it together. Finally, it is afternoon on a Saturday, which we used to record Saturday mornings.
Yes. Yeah, Saturday recordings, not an unusual thing in the history of the Dukes of Dice.
But more recently, for the last several years, we typically record Thursday night. I had a crazy trial on Tuesday and a crazy trial on Friday, such that I'm like, I cannot record Thursday night. I can't. I just can't do it. And so we rescheduled. And then, as you mentioned at the top of the episode, there was supposed to be a haircut scheduled with my grandfather this morning that wound up not happening. And as you noted on the video, I am much in need of a haircut. So we're on for next Saturday, but it created some issues with the scheduling of the episode recording.
Yeah, it did. That's all good. We're here now, Sean. We're here together, arms locked in a loving embrace.
Okay. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Not the way I would have put it, but that's fine. And really, there's not going to be much of me in this episode. It's just you and Abby. I have not listened to it yet. You recorded it last night. I'm curious what you've tacked on, because you usually tack something on to the review. So I'm curious what if anything has been tacked on.
This may delight or disappoint, depending. But there was no game that we tacked on with this one. We did talk, though, because Abby has been hand in hand with me on the Warhammer stuff. We did talk a little bit about Warhammer assembly process, and she gave some thoughts there on what she found frustrating. I'll talk a little bit about my perspective on the journey of this, and then you can hear Abby's a little bit later on. So for folks who didn't listen, again, this came out last episode. It feels like I've had this stuff forever, but that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Sean sent along a way for me to dip my toe into the cool waters of Warhammer 40K. Sean did, and this is bananas to me now. Now having done some of the work on this, it's even more bananas. Sean had assembled all of the terrain, painted all of the terrain, assembled one of the two armies and painted those, and then assembled one of the miniatures and primed it but didn't paint it. We have since then, Sean, all of the army miniatures are assembled.
Okay.
We now have 2 of them fully painted, the 2 that were on the stream, and the other 8 are primed, ready for painting. That will probably happen this weekend in preparation for playing this game, Abby and I together, and us reviewing this game that you sent along a couple of weeks ago. This is Warhammer 40K Kill Team, to be specific. So we are, we're a good chunk of the way there. We've made progress. We're keeping the feet moving. We did end up, Sean, and I may have mentioned this in the segment or not, but we did at Miniature Market buy some gold paint. So we have a little something we can use to embellish and do some extra little touches on the couple of folks we already had. So anyway, I'll let Abby talk about her thoughts on all of that, but that's the progress. And I will tell you, Sean, where you were not wrong is that there is a sense of pride you can get when you paint something like that, a sense of ownership and a sense of, oh, that's super cool. And it turned out way better than I thought mine was going to.
I told you.
Way better. Like, not even in the same ballpark. I was expecting like a little, okay, you got like a bloop of paint there and you got a bloop of paint there and that kind of overlaps and it didn't quite come out clean, but that's okay. No, it looks decent. Like, I'm super proud of what I did, and it looks somewhat realistic. The mummy wraps we joked about on the stream kind of look a little bit muddy and dirty, but it was actually a good call because I think the only thing that we're going to probably do just slightly differently on these other ones is we're going to try and bump up the contrast. It feels like the coat kind of blends in with the pants a little bit too much.
Sure.
So we might brighten up the blue or darken down the gray for the pants or something like that. But, I mean, by and large, it looked cool. And so thank you to your tutelage on this. And you gave a fine tutorial, and we had a good engagement. I was pleased with how, folks who showed up to the stream. That was a good time.
Yeah, and if you still want to check that out, it's over on our YouTube channel. So you can definitely go check out, if you couldn't check it out live, the recorded video. And what I will say is, Alex, one of your minis that you say is fully painted is not actually fully painted,
right?
Because, well, I didn't realize that he had a plasma pistol.
Oh, okay.
So all you have left to do, what's cool with these plasma pistols, they shoot out supercharged plasma. They have these little energy coils. I don't know if you saw like the bands, like these little bands on the top, and really easy to do a really cool, like glowing energy effect, which I'll tell you about. And I'll probably send you, I'm trying to think if I have something that I have on my old blog that talks about plasma coils, but it's super easy, super simple, great effect. And just kind of creates this like glowing energy look.
Well, and we're not fully done because the plan is to do a little bit of dry brushing with the metallic silver, as you recommended, on some of those parts, to do a little bit of detail work. The eyes we still need to do. Now that we have the gold, might do a little bit more on the breather box on the chest.
Okay.
Make that look a little bit cooler. So there's other little touches we're going to try and do. So yeah, we're not, to be clear, not completely done, but I mean, they're playable. They look good. They look like decent miniatures right now.
Yeah.
Without a single anything.
And you posted some up on Twitter. So yeah, I think they came out fantastic.
Yeah. So I will say on the painting side, did way better than expected. We talk a little bit about this, Abby and I, but not a fan of the clipping out and the super glue in the assembly.
Yeah.
Because when you get it right, it's seamless, it's smooth, it looks great. But if you get it slightly wrong, you didn't quite press it together, or it didn't click, or you activated too early, or whatever else. Oh, it's a pain in the neck. It's a pain in the neck, and the little bits are tiny, and you kind of lose them, and not a fan of that part. So the painting far more than the assembly with the minis, I would say.
And it's a skill set, right? It really just depends. We had back in Phoenix, we had this guy named Dan, and we called him Mechanicus Dan, because that's in 40K, that the Mechanicus, they're like they build stuff. And so I would usually send my vehicles to be like, I've got 6 rhinos, these tanks, and these land raiders, and I'd pay him some money to just build them because he could do them really fast. And I mean, certainly some people like building, some people get through it. Sometimes I like assembling. Sometimes it's a little bit less stressful than painting, but it just depends. And certainly, you could commission that. You could have somebody build it for you, going forward, if that's something you want to think about. But yeah, different strokes for different folks. There's some people that they get everything commissioned. They don't build or paint. They just send someone a box and like, here, go ahead and do this for me. Certainly doable, but yeah, that's cool. I get it.
Yeah. Well, in any case, that's the latest on my Warhammer journey. You're going to hear a lot more about that here in a couple of weeks on our next episode, presuming Abby hasn't given birth ahead of her due date. Due date's October 29th, and obviously if that happens, all bets are off. So, anyway, that's where that whole project is. Sean, you've been playing some new stuff, huh?
Yeah, I've got a couple new plays to talk about. The first one I'll talk about is Lost Cities Roll and Write. Lost Cities, the card game, is something that we've enjoyed here at home for quite a while. It's a little bit of an older game. In Lost Cities, the card game, you are basically funding these expeditions, and you're doing that by playing out cards in different colors. So different colors correspond to different expeditions, and they range in value from 1 to 9. Plus, there are also these, I think they're called wager cards. There's 3 wager cards. And the idea is on your turn, you're taking your hand, I think it's 7 cards, 6 or 7 cards, and you're playing a card out to one of the expeditions. It's a 2-player game only, one on your side of the expedition and your opponent's side of the expedition. And you play out a card to one of the expeditions. And the trick is that the next card you play to that expedition must be of a higher value. And you're going to continue this, basically play a card, draw a card, play a card, draw a card. At the end, you total up your points. It's the face value of all of the cards, plus there's some wagers, but you have to subtract out 20 from each one of them because there's an expedition cost. And if, you can lose points. If I only have, a 4, 5, and 6, that all adds up to 15, and it's 20 points for the expedition cost. So I'm actually at -5 for that. The wagers can double or triple the value. So that's the quick of it for Lost Cities, the card game. Now, the roll and write is really interesting. So in the roll and write, there are 6 dice. There are 3 dice that are just normal 1 through 6 pips, and then 3 dice that are different expedition colors on them. And so what you're going to do is, if it's my turn, I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to pick 1 number face and 1 color face, and that's what I'm going to use. Then any other players can choose any other combination that's available to them, and then you rotate whoever's first player. So it's a roll and write. So on your little pad, you have these tracks for the different expedition colors, and it's kind of the same concept. I'm sorry, it's not a D6. It's a D10. Yeah, it's a D10. And you are writing in the lowest slot. You're going bottom to top. Let's say I roll a 3 and a blue. Okay, I'm going to choose that 3 and that blue. I'm going to write 3 in the lowest spot on the blue track, and then subsequently I can then write 3s or higher. So same number or higher. A little bit different than the card game. So same number or higher, but I can't then go back and put a 2 in for the blue. There are certain spots where when you fill them in, they will give you a free bump elsewhere, which is interesting. There's also a spot where if you fill it in, it'll mark off the treasure track, because there's a separate treasure track that is worth increasingly more points. There's also a track where you don't take dice. So maybe there's no combination that works for you, or you've got, orange 3 and the only available orange combination would be like orange 9. You're like, well, no thanks. I don't want to cut myself off right now. So you can always choose not to take anything, and then you cross off this other track of the declined dice track, I guess is what I would call it. And you get more points for going up on this declined dice track. But if you go all the way to the top, you bust on that and you lose all of those points. So kind of interesting. But what's also interesting is that there's somewhat of a race here, which helps make this a little bit more interactive than most roll and writes, because there are these bridges that occur, I think it's either 2 or 3 spots below the top. And if you're the first person to cross that bridge, you're going to get a certain number of bonus points, and everyone else crosses that bridge off because, well, they can go past it, but they just don't get the points for it. Pretty dang simple, but really enjoyed it. Played this with Matt over at Empire a week or so ago. Picked up a copy, bought it. That's a good sign. And then Raquel and I have played it a couple times. She loves it. She loves Lost Cities, and she really likes the roll and write too quite a bit. Quite good. I thought it was really good. Really enjoyed Lost Cities roll and write.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. It's been a while since I played Lost Cities, the original. It's one I think Abby, we may have tried when I was at Empire, but if we haven't, I think it's a game she'd like a lot. It would be worth having in the collection. Between that and the Roll and Write, which one would you are you more of a fan of?
It's tough. I would still probably pick the card game over the Roll and Write. But they're both good. They're both good. So,
Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to check it out. Sean, I'm going to talk about a game that is not out, but soon after this episode comes out, will be available via Kickstarter. This I played via Tabletop Simulator with Duke Suzanne, as well as Aaron from the Boards Alive podcast. Sean, you were too busy trial prepping to join us. I think you would have had fun. This is a game called Thunder Road Vendetta. And I think much like all restoration games, it's a redo of an older school game. It has not fully a Mad Max vibe, but kind of that type of vibe. You have 3 cars and a helicopter. Those 3 cars are trying to race, but race and destroy, I think, is more the thing, because your objective in this game is to be the first one off the end of a board when one of the players has been eliminated. So there's kind of these series of tracks that you have with obstacles and different things of terrain. There's things that if you move into them, your car will instantly explode and blow up. Once all 3 of your cars are done, you're done. Once someone crosses that front board, anyone on the previous board, on the very first board of 3, is immediately eliminated, and then another track will get added, unless someone's eliminated. If someone's eliminated, then the game just ends there, and the person who crossed first wins the game. How this is broadly going to work is everyone rolls dice. You're then going to assign a die to a car, move that car that set number of spaces. If you get into a collision with a car, in other words, you're on top of another car, you're going to roll 2 dice. And the dice will tell you top or bottom. So cars will stack on top of each other camel up style, or camel cup, as some people like to think of it, and they're wrong. But they'll sit on top of the other car. You'll roll the dice. Top car gets rolled. There's a direction that will get rolled as well. So it'll go forward left, forward right, forward back, to the side. It'll go some direction out of the crash. The larger car in the collision can choose to re-roll if they don't like the result that comes up. But remember, that larger car could ultimately be the one on the second roll tossed into something else. So if you get tossed into another car, well, great, that's another collision to work off of. If you get tossed into certain spaces, your car just blows up and you're done. Or you can get tossed into hazards and your car can take damage. There's all sorts of funky things that can happen. To describe this game as controlled chaos would be accurate, save for maybe some elements of the control. It is a wild experience as far as sending chain reactions of crashes, trying to put yourself in position to shoot at other cars. When cars take damage, they can blast off in unpredictable directions. It's crazy madcap fun. It is the ultimate beer and pretzels game in many ways, Sean, at least from the version that we played online. And excited to see the full version. This is a game that I think was explicitly designed for me. One of those just kind of chaos engines of a game. There's not even an only thing. There's player elimination, so be wary of that if you're not a fan of that. There's some certainly strong elements of take that. But the game is not so in-depth or so serious, if that makes any sense, to where it's really a feel-bad moment when that stuff happens. So that's Thunder Road Vendetta. It's coming to Kickstarter. There'll be some expansion stuff, a whole bunch of other things along with it. But another winner from Restoration. I'm excited to see the final product. It's chaotic in a good way. Reminds me a lot of Colt Express in some ways.
I'm looking forward to this quite a bit. I like the style of game. There's things like Gaslands, and there's a GMT. There's a GMT version of Thunder, something like it. Different mechanics, but yeah, I'm pretty interested in this. So
this is on the lighter end of things for sure.
Yeah.
From what I tried, this is meant to be accessible. It's in that downforce category of games, but it has a lot of satisfying parts to it. So excited to see the final version. But yeah, I absolutely think you'd like this one. So that's cool. Thunder Road Vendetta coming to Kickstarter soon from Restoration Games. Sean, anything else you've been playing?
Yeah, so I got to play Juicy Fruits, which is from Capstone games. Really, it's part of their Simply Complex line. And this game, it's this cute, little cartoony looking game. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot here. Kind of when you see it on the table. I mean, it looks good. Don't get me wrong, but boy, is there a ton of game in this sort of cutesy package. I liked this quite a bit. So in Juicy Fruits, you own or control this tropical island where you're producing a bunch of different fruits. There's bananas, oranges, limes, pomegranates, and mangosteens. I have no idea what a mangosteen is, Alex. Have you ever heard of a mangosteen?
No
like
idea.
Half mango, half fruit steen.
Steen?
I don't know. Okay. But what you're basically doing is on your turn, you are collecting fruits from your island, and then you're using those fruits to either fulfill shipping contracts on your island or to start up businesses from a shared board. So let me talk about your individual island. So at the start of the game, it's this little 3x3 square. You have 3x3 smaller squares, and you have your 5 fruit gatherers that are basically arranged in kind of the 2 diagonals of the island, of that 3x3 grid. And so what you're able to do on your turn is you're able to move your one of your collectors over, up, down, left, right, as many available spaces. At the start of the game, the way everything's set up, you can only move at one space. You collect a fruit of that type for every space you're able to move. Now, the cool thing is, as you fulfill these contracts, these boats that are surrounding your island are actually going to open up spaces for you to be able to move your fruit collectors. So now, at a certain point, instead of moving my banana collector one space, I might be able to move it 3 spaces, and I collect 3 bananas in one go. That's obviously much better. There are some easier contracts to fulfill, and then some harder contracts. It's all the same for everybody as far as their own individual islands go. But the other thing too is there are these businesses that you can purchase from a shared board. And these businesses need to get placed on your island. Most of the businesses, once they're placed, they're going to stay there. And that kind of goes against the idea of you trying to free up space. You can get more stuff in one go, but they're going to give you special abilities. They're going to give you some points. They're going to do a whole bunch of things. There's also some other collectors, some like they collect one or the other, 2 different types of resources. They might give you a bonus to collecting resources. There's also these little ice cream carts, which is another way to gain points. Basically, anytime you're fulfilling contracts, anytime you're building buildings, you're scoring some amount of points, building, I'd say a slight engine building. Nothing tremendous here, but it was great. It was really solid. It's Capstone and it's Simply Complex, so I'm of course gonna be very interested in it. Seeing pictures of it, I was like, I don't know. This doesn't seem quite like some of their other Simply Complex games. But no, it appearances were deceiving. This was a really solid game. I am on the fence about getting this. I think Chewy would enjoy this. And so, yeah, I think she would enjoy this. I think Raquel would enjoy this. What I will say about Chewy, by the way, remember about a year ago or so, I picked up some Pokemon starter decks because she had indicated interest in playing Pokemon. And it was too early. Like she could read, but she wasn't like a great reader at that point. We played a game of Pokemon last night. We played a game of Pokemon today. We're going to probably play another 2 or 3 games at some point this weekend. It's, as of last night, it was like a whole new world. She's like reading cards. She was like remembering cards, remembering what they do. It was like I got a little like teary-eyed last night because it was like, it felt like she is now ready to game. So I'm going to be careful, and it's going to very much be, what does she want to do? But anyway, I think she would like Juicy Fruits, and I think it's a simple enough for a 7-year-old, but at the same time, it kept me super interested. So I think you would like this quite a bit too.
Yeah, I've wanted to try this one. I've heard good things within the St. Louis community from folks who've tried it. So it's on the list of games I'd like to jump into. It sounds absolutely up my alley, and probably one Abby would enjoy too.
Excellent. It's an excellent game. So that is Juicy Fruits from Capstone Games and Simply Complex.
Well, very good. That's what we've got as far as recent plays. Coming up after the break, Abby and I dive into Cascadia. Well, Sean, the Game Toppers 3.0 Kickstarter is in the books, and thanks to a whole bunch of backers, Game Toppers had a heck of a Kickstarter campaign, more than $800,000 raised to get more Game Toppers, new features, all sorts of fun stuff headed folks' way.
Wait, did you say 800,000?
I did say that amount. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's a ton of money.
Sean, did you make it in time? Are you part of that group?
It's over? It's over? Like over?
No, it's done. I'm sorry you missed your window. But the good news, Sean, is that if you keep an eye on the Game Toppers LLC website, the late pledge manager should be open in the near future. Take a look there, and you can still get in on all the fun, get the newest features, get yourself a Watson, or get yourself, I don't know, whatever you want. Awesome game mats, rails, something cool to really take your gaming experience to the next level without getting a fully dedicated gaming table, which is exactly what Game Toppers is all about. Check them out, GameToppersLLC.com, because if it ain't a showstopper, it ain't a Game Topper. Joined once more by Abby, my very pregnant wife, and she just winced, like significant wince, right as we're jumping into this.
I'm sorry, she kicked me really hard right as your voice started.
Now, here's the thing. We know it's probably a kick based on location because we know exactly she is, according to the doctor, head is very low.
She head down. She upside down.
Because as of the time of this recording, we are 3 weeks and change. I think it's 3 weeks and a day.
3 weeks exactly. Today is
3 weeks
37
exactly.
weeks.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, 3 weeks exactly from the due date of October 29th, 2021. And yeah, little girl we know is head down, at least currently. We think is in the exact right position, but who knows? Stuff can change.
Unfortunately, I do not have see-through skin, so there is only so much that we can know.
What is the sense of future baby girl's personality at this point?
She will be very much like her father.
She will occasionally not review stuff and enjoy tequila with her friends. Is that what might happen?
She loves board games and hockey. No, she is a night owl. She likes to stay up late in the mornings. She's usually pretty chill. And when I'm sitting at work in the morning, she doesn't really bother me. And then as the day progresses, she gets more and more energy. And then in the evenings, she is high energy girl.
Oh, high energy. Okay. Yeah. And then some days she kind of crashes out, which is a little like me too.
Yes. She goes and goes and goes and goes. And then whoop. And then she has like 2 days of just like nothing, of just pure exhaustion.
I do hope she actually is into hockey because that would be super fun. Helping skate with her and pass pucks around and all that good stuff. In any case, we're in the waiting game right now. Our wingspan themed nursery is set up and in decent shape. And you have been quite participatory in gaming hobbies, not just board games. Before we dive into our review of Cascadia, I did want to ask you about Warhammer, which you had a reaction when that box came in. And then you've been hand in hand, the two of us together have been teaming up on assembling these things and on a stream, not terribly long before this episode was released, actually painting one of those things. What is your impression of the miniatures experience so far?
Yeah, so I've enjoyed it. They're really fiddly. The building bits of it, that's probably the least favorite part is the like cutting them out and sanding off the little plastic blibs and making sure they all glue together. And we've had our fair share of like, this one didn't fit quite right, and trying to pop it back apart or whatever. Painting them I really enjoyed. I've told you this. The theme is still awful. Just atrocious. Little war guys, really not something I'm into at all. Hard to find cute, adorable miniatures to paint.
We went to Miniature Market and explicitly looked for this. Yeah. And Someone mentioned to me, I can't remember who it was, but they said, well, they have ponies. They have like D&D ponies there. To which your reaction is, that's not what I'm looking to paint.
No, I want.
You're not a horse fan anyway.
Oh no, I do not like horses at all. No, like what a D&D. I don't want D&D. Like I don't want anything that's like this is also in the universe with orcs and trolls. Like I want it to be like cute little kitschy sort of Sanrio adjacent. Fun. Like there's so many board games that have really good art that isn't like super realistic.
Yeah, cartoony almost.
Yeah, that like you could make a miniature of that, but they don't.
I showed you the Arcadia Quest minis, and those seem to appeal to you.
Yeah.
So I think there's something out there. It's just not sold separately as miniatures, because when we went to, and this is rare for us, look at the miniature part of Miniature Market, it was lacking as far as that goes, right? There was Warhammer 40K, there was some D&D stuff, there were some other kinds of war games, and then there was a little bit of Marvel and a little bit of
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. None of which you were particularly stoked on. Although there were some cool paints. They have a very good selection of really interesting paints at Miniature Market.
Yeah, like the paints are super cool, but like when are you going to use those paints to paint your war guy?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess if like Sean hadn't so graciously already painted half of this stuff for us, I would have tried to be like, well, we're going to do the pink army versus the teal army because those paints look more fun.
Sure.
But we have been kindly gifted some paints, and so we have,
more gritty. Our stuff is more gritty.
Yes, it's very realistic. It's realistic sort of war colors.
Yeah. Well, hey, Guild, if you have any suggestions as far as adorable or cute or just, I don't know, not war dudes miniatures, I think Abby would be appreciative, because I would anticipate when Baby comes along, painting some of these things could be a nice little fun pastime in between.
Yeah, I do like painting.
You do? We don't do it a ton.
No.
You haven't done it in a while.
It's messy. It takes some effort. It's a whole ordeal to get it all out. So, but when we're trapped at home with winter and Baby, both things make it seem less of a big deal.
Winter is coming, in fact. Yeah.
I say that it's supposed to be 90 degrees this weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, St. Louis is not quite cooled down completely yet. It's not summer, but it's definitely not quite fall either. So, all right. Pivoting over to Cascadia. Normally I do some sort of fun, weird intro here, and then we dive in and do a rules explanation. A couple episodes ago, last couple times you've been on the show, you wanted to do the rules explanation yourself. Do you want to do the rules on this one? I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, you can do the rules on this one.
This one I can do the rules on. Okay. Cascadia is a game based off of the Pacific Northwest. It's published by Flat Out Games. It is the second in a line of, I would say, warm, cozy games would be the best way to describe it. Their other game was Calico. Cascadia is played over the course of 20 rounds. You have a starter set of hexes, and your objective is to get the most points. You're going to get points in a variety of ways. You can get them by territory types. So they have swamps, and they have kind of lake, and they have mountains, they have forest. There's another type. It's desert type. It's not material, but basically you have to have as many of these types of hexes together as you can. So your largest area of each type is going to score. And then if you have the largest of anyone at the table, you'll also get a majority bonus. So that's one group of points, is on how efficiently you build your layout. More points, and perhaps the trickier part of the game, comes from how the animals score. So there are 5 different types of animals. They will score differently based on what scoring card you're using. I'll give some examples for each one. The salmons, for instance, you'll score if they are in a run based on the number of salmon in that run, a run being kind of a chain of salmon. You might score for elk. One of the scoring conditions for them is build them into a ring. And the more complete your ring, the more points you get for that group of elk. Bears, you can have bears. There was one of the scoring cards is 1 bear by itself, 2 bears next to each other, 3 bears all clumped together, and each of those would score differently. And if you get one group of each type, you get a bonus there. Great. You have hawks. Hawks, the base scoring one for them is you will score points based on how many alone hawks you have. Hawks you don't have next to other things. So that's how you'll score each of those, right? You'll go through the types of scoring for each of those animals. You'll get your area and area majority scoring. That's what you have at the end of the game. That's your objective. How it will play out is each round you are going to pick a pair. You're going to grab a hex and you're going to grab an animal. The hexes themselves will have 1 or 2 terrain types, and they'll have a certain amount of animals that can call that space home. You'll then place the animal in an eligible space if you want to. You can choose not to, or if you don't have a space that matches, it gets discarded. More often than not, you'll want to place an animal if you can. There's circumstances where you wouldn't, but you'll place an animal on a respective territory, and that's an entire turn. It's really just pick a pair, go from there. See what I did there?
Cute.
Yeah, I thought so. There are ways of modifying this, though. If you have, there are these keystone tiles, which are 1 terrain type, 1 animal. And if you have the animal that goes there and place it on that spot, you'll get a little pine cone. And that pine cone can be used to either wipe out all of the animals and repair them with tiles or some amount. You don't have to do all of them. Or you can use that to pick not a pair, but I can pick 1 from this pair and 1 from that pair. So 1 animal from here, 1 tile from there. That's the game. There's other little tiny things, but really that's the gist of it. It's 20 turns. It sounds dirt simple, but it's puzzly because of those scoring conditions as mentioned before. We'll dive into it. We'll get into it, but that's effectively how you play Cascadia. Should mention Cascadia designed by Randy Flynn, art by the incredibly talented Beth Sobel. You love a lot of Beth's stuff.
She does really good work.
Yep. So, and again, published by Flat Out Games in partnership with AEG. So, Abby, before playing this game, what were your impressions going in?
Yeah, it's a beautiful box. This is one that at Miniature Market I would pull off the shelf. Like, I would be drawn to it. It looks really nice. This sort of the hexagon puzzle aspect of a game is something I like. It's something I'm drawn to. It's a game that I'm playing against you, but it's not a mean game. I'm playing against myself to do the best that I can. And that's what I like in a game.
And although it's a different designer, I believe, it is the same publishing house that did Calico. And Calico, I believe we reviewed on the show together. You absolutely adored Calico.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's a puzzly game. It just like great little pieces that fit together very nicely. And it's competing against yourself as much as you're competing against the other people who are playing.
Yeah. My first impressions of this one, I backed this on Kickstarter, and I had kind of an early heads up with this one because they did something fairly brilliant, which is they put a single-player adaptation of Cascadia so I could try and see how that would pair, and knew immediately this would be an Abby game. Not just because of the company's track record with Calico, but just, again, that puzzly nature of games. That is something you absolutely glom onto. This is a kind of game that is an Abby game. So I had a chance to try before I bought via Kickstarter. I think I mentioned on this show a few episodes back, ran into some odd fulfillment issues with the Kickstarter. It was not the publisher's fault. I think probably the one to blame most would be UPS. I think UPS or USPS, something weird happened in there, but I think it happened in shipping. I don't think it was the fulfillment company. I don't think it was Flat Out. It took longer for me to get this than it should have, but I got it and was super glad I did. Let's talk rulebook and maybe ease of learning. You didn't have to dig around in the rulebook at all, I'm pretty sure, at any point.
No, when Allison came over to play, we were looking at the rules for the bonus points.
Bonus points and 3 players and all that. But you learned the game from me teaching you.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say, not surprisingly, it's not a very difficult game, and the rulebook doesn't overcomplicate it. The rulebook is very clean, nicely laid out. Things are where you expect them to be, and we'll talk about this. I don't know where a good spot for this is, but one of the core advantages this game has over Calico in my book is ease of setup. Ease of setup and breakdown. Calico, as beautiful and elegant of a game as it is a beefier setup than this. This is just take out tiles, remove a set number based on player count, give everyone a board, pick the scoring conditions you want, and you're off and running. There's really not a ton to it. And I think that plays to the game's advantage. It is easy to learn, and when stuff comes up, it's easy to look up. They also have the card different scoring conditions laid out very clearly towards the back of the rulebook, so there's no room for confusion. So I found it easy to teach, and I think it's a super easy game to learn. Did you share the same thoughts?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of times where we'll play a game and you'll explain the rules and then you're like, okay, do you get it? And I'm like, I guess. And it's sort of like, okay, it takes a couple rounds for me to figure in all the things you just taught me to click into place. This is not one of them. Like, it was very much, this is what you do. This is the turn structure. Go.
Yeah.
And it was very straightforward.
It's one of those games that is very easy to learn, but has some difficulty to master. Has some efficiencies. You have to kind of figure out how to play it well. That's when it can kind of start to click into place, because you're juggling, and we'll talk about this a little more in gameplay, so many different factors at once. How am I going to orient this tile? What pair do I want? Do I give up something here to go there? Can I win a majority? There's other things. We'll get into it. But from a rulebook standpoint, very successful. And I think it comes from a simple, clean rule set at the core of things. The only rule I didn't mention in my rule explanation is if there are a certain number of animals out, you can choose to wipe them out. If there's all 4 of the same animal out in the buy row at once, you have to wipe them out. That's really it. I mean, that's the only other wrinkle or corner case or weird thing to this. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a great game, like in terms of simplicity and clean like rules, but that still plays really well and doesn't feel simple in terms of like the game.
Well, and let's dive into art and components, because you mentioned this as an attractive box, an attractive look to the game. Did this satisfy from a component standpoint and an art standpoint, from a table look standpoint?
Yeah. I actually really like this almost more than Calico in terms of you're given more flexibility of where you put pieces. Calico, the board is sort of forces you. And a lot of times I like a board like that where there's sort of a set space for tiles to go so they're not shifting all over the table. These tend to all fit really nicely together. There really isn't a lot of issues with shifting. The animal tokens are nice and wooden and large, so they're easy to grab. They're easy to place. You're not fiddling with like cardboard on cardboard. The tile tokens, I don't even know if they're cardboard or wood or...
Those are cardboard, yeah.
But like, they feel hefty.
They're solid cardboard.
They're really solid.
Good thickness.
There's a really nice bag that comes to keep all the animal pieces in. So that is easy to pull out of and sort. Cleaning it up and putting the game away and setting it up are very easy. There's just not a lot of fiddly pieces and components.
The only perhaps minor bit of anything I have with this game is if I compare the insert to a game like Azul, which has a good spot for everything and feels nice and kind of everything packs together in a neat, functional way. This doesn't quite have that, right? You have the bag, you have bags for tiles, it doesn't pack like a mess. It's not a bad insert. It's just a very standard, and there's an elegance in this game that would have been nice to see reflected in that component, in that little detail. But it is a nitpick. It's an absolute nitpick.
Oh, yeah, completely. Like, I think, oh, wow, if you had an insert for each of the tiles and you knew there's X amount of tiles in each place, and so when I'm playing with 3 people, I take out 4 stacks, and when I'm playing with, whatever, like, that could be something cool, but is absolutely not necessary and very much just a nitpick. Yeah.
And here's the other piece of it. From an affordability standpoint, I think this game MSRPs, I'm going to look this up as we're talking about this, but I think it's $29.99.
That sounds right.
It sounds right, but when you have a price point like that, which is very friendly, accessible price point, you're not necessarily going to have all the bells and whistles with a custom insert, things along those lines. So I think for that price point, what you get component-wise, stellar. And I'll throw in something else. The cards, the nice cards that have the scoring conditions, cleanly laid out so you can tell which one goes with which set. Okay, this is A, B, C, D. For my Kickstarter, there's a little star, indicates they're a promo card. It has very clean examples. So, for instance, one of the scoring conditions we played with is hawk line of sight. How many lines of sight are between 2 non-adjacent hawks? It shows very clearly on that you can score multiple lines of sight for the same hawk. That's a question you might have from that rule. It cleans it up perfectly with an example. And it's true for pretty much all of the scoring cards, and for one, when it's not, you can find it in the rule book. In any case, I'm going to look up MSRP on this one. But yeah, broadly successful art-wise, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, a beautiful-looking game, and I will say, a readable game. You can tell which animals go where. You can tell which terrain types go where. You can tell if they're connected or not connected. It's clean. It's functional. It works brilliantly, honestly.
Yeah, in all of our plays, there haven't been any instances of going, ooh, would you count this or not count this? How does this work? Do you think this should happen here or there? Like those, oh, well, the rule book doesn't say, how are we going to play this as long as we play it fair for both? Like, there haven't been any instances of that. It's been very straightforward, very much you score this and you get this many points. And it's very obvious of like that scores or that doesn't score. Straightforward.
Well, and in stark contrast to a game we played together, but you weren't in on the review of, Lawyer Up.
Yeah, the yikes. That one definitely leaves some room for interpretation in the rules.
MSRP of $39.99. I think I might have gotten it for less on the Kickstarter. Still, I think a decent price point for the game. But hey, maybe you get a better insert. I
mean, I would absolutely pay $40 for this game if you didn't already have it.
Yep.
I think with my taste in games, this is absolutely worth $40.
So let's talk gameplay, because and we've touched on it a lot. It is satisfying as far as gameplay goes, as you mentioned. It is relatively calm, but what I love about a game like this is quick turns, super fast turns. Sometimes there's moments of crunchiness, a little bit of analysis paralysis. What am I going to do here? What am I going to grab? Do I use a pine cone now? Do I set myself up for something else? There are moments where that can come into play. But because most of the options you're going to have are the same options the previous player has, you can do at least a little bit of pre-planning, and sometimes turns are lightning fast, really fast. Not always, but pretty fast. Mm-hmm. And so for a game with 20 turns, it doesn't take that long to play.
No, not at all. Especially because you're looking at what's available. And if you've decided, like, I would really like to get this Fox Glacier combo and you don't grab it, I know immediately at my turn already what I'm going to pick. Like, this is the perfect one for where I'm at. This is the goals. Like, oh, this will help me achieve whatever. So, yeah, it definitely moves fast. Even when we played with 3 players, it didn't feel like there was a lot of sitting around waiting for it to come back to you.
Yeah. Gameplay is snappy. It is quick and in a lot of ways satisfying. What I enjoy about this game too is you have to be flexible. You can try and go in from the get-go on, I'm going to go Hawks this game. I'm going to go up any number of Hawks I can find. In one of the games we played not too long ago, Elk. Elk was something I was going to try and do as a strategy. But guess who's in turn order before me? Abby the Elk Master, scooping up every single possible elk she can get her hands on. And sorry, you got to pivot. I got to build up a Hawk network now, or I got to build up a Fox network. I got to work with what's available, because although you can get pine cones to give yourself some mitigation, those things are not super common. And you know, for your board, it might not make sense to build up those keystone tiles or throw something in there. It's possible for you to set something up and not be able to pay it off. So you have to be careful with the timing of how you're building your board and what you're doing, and try and balance in your head. Am I going to get a cool animal in here that's going to score me a lot? Or am I going to continue this desert area that I'm going to get majority points for and get a ton going in? What's the play here? There's a lot of satisfaction in building up a clean-looking board, but if you're doing that at the cost of animals, you're probably not going to have a good time. You're probably going to be behind other folks.
Yeah. I mean, in our last game that we played, you threw out 2 animals and you lost by 1 point.
Yeah, that was the difference. If I had had a home for either of those animals, probably get at least 2 points from that, and it's a different story. And let's say this, a lot of the games we played have been really close.
Yes.
Within a point, 2 points, 3 points. I mean, reasonably close in a game that you score usually in the 80s, 90s, in my experience. Better players might do better than that, but that's about where we end up a lot of the time.
I did break 100 once.
Okay, yes.
That one time when you were like, your board is so, like, it's so perfect. Like, for whatever reason, like, all of my areas just, there was, like, no wasted tile. But that definitely has not happened every play.
Is there anything you don't like about this gameplay? That seems like the easier question to ask, honestly.
I mean, to me, it's, we played it, 4 or 5 times now?
Yeah.
And while the animal, like, scoring condition cards are different, each animal is still kind of similar in how it plays. And so I think a variety of scoring conditions could be fun to switch it up, but like that could be an easy expansion to just like make more cards that are scoring conditions.
Yeah, I didn't find them too samey personally. I get how, for instance, elk and sometimes, I guess, salmon or whatever else can sometimes feel similar. Some of them can feel
like
samey.
Salmon always feels like it's a run of some
Yes.
sort, whether it's like a run of 3 or just a really long run or a run based on the animals surrounding it. Like it's always based on the same thing. Like hawks are like singular, whether it's a network of hawks or a line of hawks, but they can't ever be next to each other. You know, bears are in like small little families, which I get. Like it aligns with the animal in real life. So that's cool and on theme and on brand. But when you're playing the game, to me, I couldn't differentiate between games, those scoring conditions. Like there's no way I could remember which one was in what game.
Sure. I'll give a COVID caveat on this, which is that we played this at 2 and 3. We did not try it with 4. I would say I think it would be a pretty similar experience at 4, just maybe, slightly longer. You have more folks in the mix. Things are going to change more before they get back to you. So if you don't pick up something, it's not going to be there the next time around in all likelihood. It played about the same at 2 and 3. You seem to like it a little bit better at 2, maybe?
I think I like it better at 2 just because of...
You like having more control over the thing, maybe?
It's... Like... With 3, there's this impact of whoever goes right before you could foil it. Like you said, like I was taking elk, so that like I was right after Allison. So I was more concerned with what animals she was going after and trying to avoid those and making sure I was getting other ones on my board, not concerned with what you had. So it was sort of like I like a game that's a singular game and it's me versus myself, but also... I really wasn't paying attention to what you were doing on your turns.
I wasn't paying attention to what you or Allison were doing on your turns, obviously, because I kept trying to go for elk, much to my detriment. So I think you need to have some awareness of what other folks are doing, and it's maybe easier in a 2-player game. I just completely focused on myself. I didn't end up winning. I lost by a point in that game, but I think there's some element of it can feel solitaire-ish, but I don't think it is. I think there's some piece of what does this person want? What would be perfect for their board right now? And can I foil that plan just a little bit by grabbing the wrong tile? There's nothing you're going to do in this game that's really going to completely hose someone.
No.
I mean, maybe in the sense that they'll have to discard an animal or they might not have the ideal terrain or whatever else. But there's nothing that's so devastating where they go from, say, I'm making 20 points to I lost 10 points on this thing you did. They're incremental little wins and little losses that you have in this game. So, and it's hard because there's nothing that's directly mean you're doing other than grabbing something that, hey, it's scoring you points. So why wouldn't I take this? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't find the sameness in the scoring conditions. That's super interesting that's kind of where your head is with that. Interesting. Huh. Where does this compare with Calico in your mind? Is it better than Calico, worse than Calico, same as Calico?
I would rank this one better than Calico.
Why?
Because there's more flexibility in the puzzle. Calico is a set shape. You're bound by the boundaries of the border of your quilt, and you are bound by the conditions that you're like the goals that you have set. Whereas this one, it's like, well, I'm going to go for elk, and then no elk are popping out of the bag. Okay, I can switch it up. Whereas in Calico, I've already decided that my goal is this, and those tiles aren't popping out of the bag, and I'm on a limited number of spaces, and now I just have to give up going towards that goal and put a tile somewhere. This one has that more flexibility. You're not limited in a certain amount of space. You can build your shape however you want of your terrain, and you can adapt as quickly or as not quickly as you like through the pieces that are available to you.
For me, it's the setup. The setup and breakdown of this game being as simple as it is means it's easier to get to the table. So I get what you're saying about flexibility of puzzle. There is something really cool and crunchy about Calico's puzzle, though.
Oh, it's a much harder puzzle.
It's a much harder puzzle, which is really satisfying in a lot of ways when you can get it right.
Oh, yeah.
And potentially endlessly frustrating when you don't. But in sorting out the different cats, getting things set up, how you want them to... It's more of an ordeal than this. And I think the pure elegance and simplicity of this will help it get to the table more than Calico. We haven't played Calico that much. As much as you like that game a lot, it just hasn't come out a ton. And I think that's a good chunk of the reason why.
Yeah. I mean, also, I'm pregnant and tired a lot. And so this game is much easier for you to just like pop out, play a game. Okay, it took 30 minutes. You could scratch that game itch. I had fun, and it, is good for both of us.
Quick touch on theme here. We've changed how we've talked about theme in a lot of ways. You mentioned the animals being thematic and kind of how they operate, right? Salmon live in, work in runs. Hawks want to be alone. They're solitary birds and hunters. And does the theme in your mind add to this experience, or is it just kind of there?
I mean, I don't think it takes away from the experience, but I'm never one that's like, oh, I really felt like I was in the mountains. I mean, a desert salmon.
Yep.
Hard
I was about to mention this.
Hard to feel like you're really there when you're building your desert with a salmon run going through the middle of it. But like,
all hail the desert salmon, by the way. It is my favorite thing in this game is that I can have as you mentioned, an entire run of salmon that just cuts through no water.
Just straight through the desert.
Yeah. Are they in like a little salmon tunnel, do you think? Or are they literally just hopping through the sand? I don't know. It makes no sense. Sandmen? Yeah, okay.
But I also think there's kind of been this influx of games based on wildlife recently. I don't know if it's like a Wingspan effect where it was like, oh, that game did really well and it was birds. We should do elk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's that or if it's just sort of recognizing the appeal of other themes outside of...
This is something you talk about a good amount.
Yes.
Yeah, you need to have a diversity of themes in games because this is the kind of thing that will bring someone. It will bring you to the table.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's like my aunt was here for the baby shower.
Yes,
and it was she doesn't really play board games, and it was like, oh, my husband and I love watching birds in our backyard. This would be super fun.
Yeah,
like,
she literally saw the box of Wingspan, and thought about buying it.
Yeah. And so we then went to Target. You weren't with us. And because you said Wingspan was at Target. So we went to Target, and right next to Wingspan and Target is Parks.
Oh.
And she was like, oh, well, this game also seems intriguing to me because they love camping. They love backpacking. They love hiking. They're both still very active in the Boy Scouts, even though their kids are grown. Like, that's a theme that is very, like, fits their life. And then she's like, well, this would be a great game to keep in the camper to play one evening when we're camping. Like, great. These kind of themes, I think, reach a broader audience. It doesn't do anything to the game to me. Like, I don't feel like, oh, this is a better game because it's a nature theme versus a hamburger theme versus a robot theme. But I like a diverse theme.
The theme feels like it does more here than it does in, say, Azul.
Sure.
So you connect with it a little bit more, and there are moments of, okay, well, here comes desert salmon. Here's my swamp hawk. There's just, there's a little bit of silliness in some of what's available and where you're putting different animals. Like, I've got an army of water bears. They're just living there in the lake. I wouldn't say it's an incredibly narrative experience, but I think it certainly adds something to it.
Yeah.
So
well, I'd say that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, adds something to it. All right. Abby, I'm going to ask you in a bit to formulate final scores, but I forgot to pull up guild thoughts. So while I'm pulling up guild thoughts, let me see. What's a good Abby question right now? Abby, what do you want to talk about? Maybe I don't ask you anything. What do you want to say?
What do I want to talk about?
Get on a soapbox.
Your
here.
time to talk to the people. They really want to hear what you have to say. I don't believe that for a second. I always feel bad being on this show that like people are like, really just missed the dynamic between Sean and Alex. They really bounce off of each other really well, and Abby really harshes my vibes.
I haven't heard as much of that lately.
I mean, it's fine.
No.
You guys can complain all you want. It really doesn't bother me at all. And also that's because I don't read anywhere.
Yeah, she's not on BGG, so or Twitter.
No, I haven't made a secret account to
Abby's secret alt account,
post comments or anything,
or try and name an episode.
Yeah, no,
that would be amazing if you had a secret alt BGG account and tried to name an episode. Anyway, all right. Guild thoughts on Cascadia. Alex Bistecki says, there's been enough going on in Cascadia that in the 3 plays of it so far, I've kept things all on the A scoring cards, While I appreciate that the designers were forward-thinking and making multiple cards for each animal, I'm pretty sure this would be staying in my collection even if those 5 cards were the only ones in the box. And I should mention, in the base game of this, you have 4 for each animal, which you can mix and match as you'd like. All right, next up, I can't help this. This is BJ from Board Game Gumbo. I can't help but compare Calico and Cascadia, even though I hate doing it. But while I enjoy Calico, I absolutely have adored Cascadia since the first time I played it. There's something about the peaceful pace of puzzly play and the power of the pine cone that really speaks to me. I'm not sure it does anything unique, and frankly, not sure that I care. What it does really well. It's a solid 4 for me, maybe a 5 by next year. I should mention, we do rate everything here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale, 1 being bad, super bad, 6 being amazing. Although Abby has a special scale, which corresponds with the 6-point scale, but it is slightly different. And Abby, can you give the folks a sense of what that scoring system looks like?
Yes, my scale is based on if Alex asks the question, would you like to play this game? My answer would be a 6. Heck yeah. Yeah. Sure. Okay. What is it? Meh.
Meh. And no.
No.
Yeah, and just no. All right, back to the guild thoughts really quick. Paul Naxer says, Cascadia jumped off the page when I saw it since we live there. After seeing the art by Beth Sobel and playing the online solo demo more times than I care to count, it was an easy backing on Kickstarter. The extra gold cards give this multi-layered puzzle all the legs it needs to keep it coming back to the table with a fresh twist. It is a very cozy game to play solo or with friends. Would you ever want to play this one solo? Just kind of puzzle it out yourself?
Yeah, probably.
Interesting. Super interesting.
I feel like this would make a good app.
It absolutely would make a good app. And in fact, there's a solo version of it that they've developed already. So yeah, just port it to a phone. You're good to go. All right, we are at that time. Time for scores. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I want you to guess what you think I'm going to give it. I've already decided I'm going to hold the number.
The number? You're not going to write the word? You're not going to spell out the word with your fingers?
I mean, that sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
I've got the corresponding number to what I'm going to say.
All right, talking this out, so it's not lower than a 5. It's not lower than a 5 would be. A great game will rarely turn on and play of it on the Ducal scale. That's a yeah. It cannot be lower than a 5, because I think Calico was at least that, if not higher. I think this is a slam dunk heck yeah, though. That's where my mind is. I'm not going to hedge. I think you're a heck yeah on this all the way. Abby? It is absolutely a heck yeah. Yep, she is showing a 6.
Yes, it's a heck yeah for me.
Why is that?
It's just a really great game. I think from the first time we played it, which was at your parents' house eating pizza in the rain, and it was like we were doing laundry there.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, okay, well, I just got home from work. We came over here. We had to do some laundry. I'd really like to sit on the couch. I'm going to play this game. And then I was like, oh, I really enjoyed that. Like, that was a really fun game. And then since then, like, every time we've been like, hey, do you want to get a play in? Yeah, sure. Like, yes, let's do it. Like, there's no hesitation to play.
You helped get me all the plays of Lawyer Up. This was easier, and you were more excited about this than you were about that one.
Yes. Lawyer Up had so much potential to be really, really fun, and it like fits a lot of the things that I like in my life. Sort of, I'm very big into like true crime and Law and Order, and way more than you are.
Yes.
And it just had just enough frustrating moments with the rules that I was like slightly disappointed, because we had so many good moments of like cards coming out and trumping stuff and stuff. Whereas like this game never had any issues with the rules, and it always like every game just like flowed through quick and solid, that it just got me.
It clicked. It would not surprise me to see this thing in Target or one of those kinds of stores. I think it would kill it there.
Yeah, for sure.
And hats off to Flat Out Games and AEG. I think I probably have to go 6 too. I really don't have much negative to say about it.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah. It's an Abby and Alex Boxcars Award winner for whatever that's worth. I don't think, if I had to guess Sean's score, Sean would probably be a 4 or a 5. I don't think he'd go lower than a 4. I don't think he'd get to a 6. But yeah, the puzzly nature of it's super satisfying. Turns are fast. Turns are satisfying. There's enough variety in the scoring cards. It's an enjoyable, delightful game. Setup is easy. Rules, it's an easy teach. But there's depth there, and there's ways that depth can showcase in the game. I don't know. I don't have anything negative to say. It's beautifully done. Beautifully designed, love playing it, and this is one that, much like, say, Azul Summer Pavilion or some of the other ones that have become Alex Abbey favorites, Patchwork is a good example. This one is going to keep coming out. This one I expect when your sister's in town, we will play this with her, and she will like it a lot too.
Yep.
Adrian, her husband, not so much. Your sister, Jana, absolutely.
Adrian likes mean games.
A little bit of, he needs a little bit of meanness in there. Yeah, oh well. Anyway, that'll do it for the Duke's review of Cascadia. Abby giving it a heck yeah or a 6. And quite frankly, I'm going to give this one a 6 too. I really dig this one. Go check it out.
Bye!
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out Dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, an unusual double take coming up. And I should say, thanks to Abby for joining. Always happy to have that. And you definitely needed her to join this time around just because of the trial and how busy you were. So saving your butt.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Abby. And I appreciate the insights you provided about Cascadia and about the Warhammer hobbying experience, whatever those were.
Both things you've heard as of the time of this recording. So we're looking back on one where I wasn't participating, not because of bandwidth or time constraints, but because of conflict of interest. Maybe I should keep out of this one. Sean, you reviewed with Mariah Pendulum on episode 234, No Time Like the Present. Real-time game from Stonemaier Games. Super interesting, but I will say, and we'll get to it in a second here, Sean, I think a little telling that there weren't guild thoughts on this one on the thread. So just a heads up there. But Sean, you and Mariah at the time, you gave this one a 4. You said you enjoyed the game. You were good at it. Your concern was finding the right situation where you'd actually play it. You mentioned several folks in the game group who you thought this is not going to be a good match for. But you thought the game itself was certainly more in the category of good than okay. So that's where you landed on that. Mariah gave it a 4 as well. She wasn't a huge fan of the real time. There were other games she enjoyed more, but she did. There were lots of elements she found enjoyable. She suggested she didn't want to play this one with the time track. Sean, have you played this game since?
I have not played it since. It was so Mariah liked it well enough. Raquel did not like it at all, and that of course makes it difficult because Raquel here in the house is my main, at least for now, until Chewy keeps stepping up, is my main gaming partner. And so if she doesn't like a game, then it's just not going to get played here. This was this was October-ish of last year.
Yes.
And kind of height of the lockdown from what I recall. And so there's certainly people I would have played it with, had we, had Empire been up and running at that point. But yeah, it never really jumped out at me as something to get to the table, returning to Empire and even here at the house. So yeah, I liked it. Like you said, it was definitely more good than just okay. It's interesting. You can play it either real time or you can kind of play it as kind of action point allowance. And I preferred the real time just because it's a little interesting, a little different. But of course there were the issues with the sand timers, and we had one kind of bum sand timer, which was a little annoying. But yeah, okay. So here's a question: is it staying at a 4? A good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the Duchy. What I will say is it did go in the last Gamers Garage sale that we had over Labor Day weekend. Because I just knew I wasn't going to play it here at home. I made that decision. I'm pretty sure because Empire has a copy, but I just don't know that I'm going to ever think to bring it out again. Is it a 3 then? Game is okay, not exciting. We'll play in the right situation. Yeah, I think it's going to fall to a 3. I think it's going to fall to a 3. Yeah,
I'm not surprised by that. I think it's such an unusual game, and I think I said this perhaps at the episode at some point, despite I not reviewing it, but it was an incredible risk. It's such a unique game in how it uses real time that I think it's sort of in this weird spot where it's not quite accessible enough for newer players, and there are enough of the more experienced hobby folks who don't like real time as a component. They want their time to think, they want their time to process, and I think it just got caught in a weird space. Props to Stonemaier for trying something new and unique, but yeah, it did not, I think, catch in the way that was anticipated. So there you go. Well, that'll do it for a very quick. Oh, have you talked to Mariah? Did Mariah have any updated thoughts on this?
No, she didn't. I didn't. Well, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't ask her.
You didn't ask. Yeah, I get it. It's all right.
I would literally just call her on the phone, even though she's just up above me. But I know she's working on a school assignment, so I don't want to get in the way of that.
All right. Well, your job being a good dad is cramping our style here.
I know, it's terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah, just terrible. All right, well, before we wrap things up, the best of the rest of the names we did not pick. No, Alex Bistecki, you are not in here. You were in the higher up section where you won. But we had some other really good ones, a couple musical ones. The Name Father, Steve O'Rourke, with The Time of My Life, referring to all of the life in Cascadia, the impending birth of my daughter, and then also the time from Pendulum.
Well, and the musical element. Well, not the musical element, but it's the song. It's from Dirty Dancing.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've had the time of my life. And not the only musical one in this list. So.
And then Blaine Miley suggested, have the Beth time. And no, I don't have a lisp. It's Beth for Beth Sobel. And of course, there's the time element of Pendulum. So just referencing the artist of Cascadia. Good job, Blaine.
Yep. Nice job, Blaine. Phil Speck, who Phil, this is no offense to you. Just because of the nonsense Sean pulled, I went into the profile and made sure this was a legit account. And yes, it's been around since 2015. It's done other stuff. So, Phil, good to have you. I don't recall seeing the name as earlier in the guild. And if you did, I also apologize. In any case, Sean has me all paranoid these days. Anyway, his name was West Coast Swing. West Coast referring to Cascadia in the Pacific Northwest, and swing referring to the swing of the pendulum. Clever name.
Alex, how much money do you think that I would spend on some sort of mask or disguise, and to meet you as a new person, and then it's like, haha, it was me all along. How much money do you think I would be willing to spend on a convincing disguise? To
$1,500.
That might be right.
$1,500 for you to get the. Now here's where I think it would fall apart. I don't know if your voice work could fool me.
Okay. Maybe.
I think some of that $1,500 would need to go to acting lessons. So you could get a convincing voice going.
Here's what I would say. I would say that I would budget $600 for this. But
okay.
But then things would start going over budget. It'd be like, well, here's what the wig looks like, but for another $200, we could really do this instead. And I'd be like, oh, all right, fine. And then like the latex mask, I'm like, I don't know. And then they're like, you should really think about some contact lenses, which I would never want to put in. But if it's for so yeah, I think you may be right. I think reluctantly it would be that much. So I just want you on your toes. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, look, fair enough.
All right. And then
all right.
Wait, did you say? Did you actually say Phil's title?
Yes, West Coast Swing.
Okay.
I broke it down. Did the whole thing.
Did you? I didn't remember. And I was totally listening too.
I did. Pay attention. Hey, pay attention.
All right. And then John Soleil suggested biological clock. Again, the biology, the nature of Cascadia. Also, the pending birth of Shauna Goldstein. Wow. Goldsmith. Wow. Jeez.
That happens all the time. So I think if you were to take the most common mix-ups of my name, I would be Adam Goldstein.
Okay. All right. And then the clock from the pendulum element. So yeah, I like that. Also, anytime I hear biological clock, I think of Marissa Tomei from My Cousin Vinny. She's like, my biological clock is ticking. She's stamping the porch little cabin they're staying at? No. Have you
Haven't
never
seen
seen
that
My
movie.
Cousin? Oh, you need to watch My Cousin Vinny. I just watched it again. Like, I probably watch it every couple of years. It's a great, like, as an attorney, it's a great movie. Like, it's probably one of my favorite, like, attorney legal movies.
Okay.
It's so
All right.
good. Oh, it's so good.
Finally, Kyle Kelly with Born to Be Wild. All right. That one referring to, again, Baby Coming and the wilds of these animals in Cascadia. And I guess Born could also sort of refer to time, too, but maybe not as much of Pendulum in there.
I don't know how I feel about that little extra flourish on the end there, Alex.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't as accurate as it could have been. But I'm not doing it again, so
No.
you're stuck with that.
Nor am I asking.
Good.
you to. All right. Well, hey, Alex, these recordings on my end should always be this short.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be extremely short for me 2 episodes from now, probably, when I am certain to be on paternity leave from the Dukes of Dice. What are our benefits like, our paternity leave benefits like here at the Dukes of Dice, Sean?
Oh, it's fully paid. You're going to get paid exactly what you're getting paid now.
Excellent. Good. All right. Do I also get copies of the review games that you're reviewing while I'm gone?
No, what? No. We're
All right. Well, good deal. Hey, hopefully I'll see you here in a couple weeks, Sean. You never know what Baby Girl's timing is going to be, but hopefully we'll be talking Warhammer here in a couple weeks.
hopefully, and if not, then we'll just put it off for a couple months. No big deal.
Yeah, or whatever. Well, very good. That'll do it for episode 260, named by Alex Bistecki, Pacific Standard Time. Yes, Sean, I stole your spotlight. Deal with it. Until next time, this is Sean. Wait, nope, I'm not Sean.
All right,
is why I
just duke you later, everybody. You know the deal. You know who we are.
Yeah. All right. Duke you later. Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on October 9th, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all latest in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsor, Game Toppers LLC. You can learn all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on.